What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActTheMovieGuy.com and I feel like warm apple pie. I know, I mean, I'm your favorite blind film critic, and this is the 25th anniversary of American Pie, which a lot of people have noticed. I have noticed, a lot of other people have noticed, and they've been commenting on it. And I even heard a podcast that had Alyson Hannigan coming in with her thoughts on the 25th anniversary, and she was like terrified that her kids were going to watch this one day and having to have that conversation with them. Um, so yeah, it's coming. Yeah, probably your kids will watch this someday because I have seen films that were before my generation. So we watch old movies, man. I don't know what to tell you. And American Pie has a lot of sequels. It's kind of made a big imprint on film history, whether for better or for worse. It's out there. Uh, so yeah, I own this on DVD. My DVD doesn't have audio description. There is an audio description track that was recorded for this and is out there in ether, and I listened to it, and I honestly, we're not missing anything. It should be re-recorded anyway. I didn't like the track. It never really worked. So I'm kind of glad that the track disappeared. I shouldn't be saying that, but every single joke was like described after it happened. So like if you were really watching it with somebody else, like your friend would be laughing and then you would get the joke described and it would be like, oh, ha, ha. You'd be like afterwards and you'd be like trying to, you'd be like, that was my friend. Oh, okay. Like it just doesn't really line up with, I don't know, timing. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the deal is, but I was not a fan of the track. It just didn't do much for me. Um, but the I mean, I guess it tracks some basic movement and stuff, so it's better than nothing for some people who've never seen the movie before. I do have the fortunate, I'll check my, uh, privilege and say that I was sighted at one time and now I'm not. And that's part of the reason why I fight so hard for accessibility is because I know what you're getting. I know what we're getting now, and I think if everybody just walks on the other side and they're just like, oh my God, you know, um, then I know. So, but American Pie, 25 years later, in the last 25 years, comedy has evolved. And now people are like, well, we can't do comedy anymore. We would never be able to make a film like American Pie today. Question mark. Um, so I definitely saw a film on Hulu this year that absolutely has raunchy comedy in it. It just has female leads. And that's kind of what they're doing with teen comedies nowadays is they're making like similar movies, but they're just flipping it. So they're flipping. So what I would say is, can they make American Pie today? Well, they tried. They tried to do that with female leads, and it didn't work because it wasn't any good. I saw it was on like Netflix for like five minutes, and I don't know what happened to the remake, but it's like people are trying to like make us forget that it ever happened. Um, but yeah, it was pretty awful. It's not that it can't be done; it just needs to be done with like, like new through a new lens. A fresh director who takes the idea because basically these are just kids who are reflective of their time period and what kids are going through right now. And uh, I mean, in 1999, and what their culture was like, and that culture's not the same. Like, I can't watch Beach Blanket Bingo and be like, well, I totally relate to this. It's not when I grew up. Even the 80s, I recently, I have a review now on my channel of 16 Candles. And I was like, oh my God, do we have to put the gong every time the Asian character comes on screen? Like, films can be incredibly problematic, and time does not always look fondly upon them. But when you grew up with them, when you see films a certain way, it becomes really hard to detach the nostalgia from certain films. And for me, that's true about American Pie. I was 16 when American Pie came out. I was the literal target demographic for American Pie. the perfect fucking demographic for American Pie. I was 1 year shy of being able to get into a rated R movie. So there was that, like, I was that age where it's like, "Oh, I gotta sneak into rated R movies." Every once in a while, I actually looked old enough that I generally got sold the ticket to to rated R movie. And this lovely beard that you see here came in while I was in high school. It started cut not as thick and everything, but yes, I had a beard by the time I graduated. So, yeah, I looked older than I did, at the time, so, that helped. And plus, not everybody does their job, not every box office cashier, sometimes you're just like, "Yeah, go in, watch the movie." But I think I had to sneak into American Pie. So, it's weird when you live in a state that lets you drive a car but doesn't let you see American Pie. Um, and so I got to see the antics, and it was also one of like the first. I don't think it was my first DVD. It might have been. I think. And I hate to say this. I think Fast and Furious was my first DVD, but I think American Pie was like my second. I wasn't making good life choices back in this time period when I got my DVD player. I think it was like it was definitely like the first 5 DVDs that I bought. So I've owned this DVD forever. Uh forever. And um I have the first 3. I have the first one, the second one, and American Wedding. I don't have Reunion. I didn't really care. It was like they brought that. I don't care. Um but yeah, there's a lot here. There, I mean, obviously the webcam is problematic, but today, kids today, they're like, "Oh, we've progressed." Not really. If they made this movie today, it would probably just be about sexting. It'd be like, "Oh my God, he sent I sent him a photo and he showed it to his friends." Oh my God. That would be what it is today because that's what's happening with kids today. So they wouldn't have a webcam set up in a room. And no, they would just have a girl who's just okay with taking photos and then sending them. You know what I'm saying? Or they would make the boy even creepier and he would be taking the photos and she wouldn't know. But it would just be sending people cell phone photos. Uh, I mean, y'all haven't advanced that much. I was, I'm in a situation where I work with the young folk of tomorrow, and I went in the bathroom to use it, and there's just some kid just chilling in the stall, going number 2, going through the TikTok thread openly on his just in the bathroom, just scrolling through TikTok with the sound full blast. I'm just sitting there going like, these kids, they think that they have moved the needle. And it's like, no, you not really. You're just doing things a little bit differently. And then 20 years later, when you get old and you have kids, your kids will look at you and be like, "You were terrible human beings." And everything that you were doing back then was terrible. And you'll have stuff like American Pie. I don't know what your American Pie is, but we'll find it. They'll find it for you, and it'll tell you. And they'll be like, "Yes, this is terrible," um, and it'll make you do a lot of like introspection and reflection. And I'm like, so I did that as a gay film critic. Yes, this is I wince when Stifler says the line. I wasn't out in 1999. I lived in no one was out where I lived. It didn't exist. Like that's why I've mentioned this in a couple of my reviews. Like the only representation I had in media was in media. It was like the Birdcage and Tu Wong Fu and like Will and Grace and stuff like that because I knew nobody. Like there was no one. It was so weird because like where I lived, people didn't even use it as a joke. Like I was made fun of far more if jokingly for my weight than anything else. Like people didn't even throw like homophobic slurs were like few and far between, and they found other ways. I had more racists around me than anything else, but no, homophobia was just like people were like, what is that? Like it hadn't reached me, like it just wasn't a thing. But then sort of like I would say a little bit after Stifler's period is when when saying, calling people gay or whatever and stuff like that, as derogatory, really just kind of sort of like what we're doing now with calling everything woke. The word just kind of eventually took on this thing where it's like, what does that word even mean to you anymore? Like, what are you using it for? You're like, oh, my car wouldn't start. That's so gay. Like, you're just gonna use it for everything that means bad, like a bad experience for you. You're like, oh god, that shirt's so gay. That I that was such a gay meal. Food that was so gay there. Like, I mean, when you overuse a word, it starts to lose meaning. It's just the word senses to have any sort of effect anymore, and that's kind of what happened with gay. To the point where literally I remember playing like Xbox with people, and people would just be like, gay. You're just like, anything else? Is it attached? No, you're just saying the word. The word just is something. So, um, I mean, like, it all came from, obviously it started with homophobia, but just like woke started somewhere. But now people are like, oh, God, that bag of chips is so woke. And you're like, what is it? What does that even mean? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what? When you're going for your head, use a different word and like replace the word woke in a sentence and tell me what that bag of chips makes you feel. Like, what does it really say? What are you really trying to say? So, I think about that nowadays, and it kind of makes me laugh at how stupid it is because I do remember that's kind of what happened for a long time with that word, where people were just like, oh, it's like everything became gay. But Stifler here is not a representation of anything. In the first film, when he says it, you're not supposed to like Stifler, by the way. It's sort of like being mad because there's a racist character who's also the one you're not supposed to like. So, yeah, he's homophobic, but Stifler is not the takeaway. Nobody's supposed to walk out of American Pie going like, man, I wish I was Stifler. Like, if you see yourself in Stifler, there's a problem. He's not even part of the friend group. He's like outside the friend group. He's adjacent. Like, the main group uses him in the film. They don't actually associate with him, like, of their own free, like, oh, let's, you know what we really want to do today? I really want to hang out with Stifler. They're like, oh no, well, we have to have a party. Well, who owns the cool house? Stifler does. I guess we're going to Stifler's. It's like that kind of thing. Like, he happens to also be on the lacrosse team with Oz, but he's not like really in a situation where they're like, oh yeah, we love hanging out with Stifler. This is our favorite thing to do. So he's obnoxious to the people within the film who don't use homophobic rights. Um, so there's that. But yeah, obviously, if this film, one of the things you have to address is, oh my God, this film is full of white people. It's just like unnervingly so. Like, good God, do you not know anybody? Even in 1999, I knew more like people of color than than this cast seems to know. They've got John Cho. John Cho is like the entire like ethnic representation in this film. To be fair, he's also the one that coins MILF, so which became a thing and is still a thing. I look at Max and I've got like in my titles that they keep popping around. I've seen something called MILF Banner. And MILF of Norway? What is this? What are you doing? Stop it. Uh, it's funny how just one casual reference. If you want to talk about did American Pie have a cultural, is it culturally significant? Apparently, yeah. Because if we're still using the term, then this movie is still culturally significant. And people don't even know where it came from. They're just like, I don't know. Well, let me tell you, young one, have you ever heard of Stifler's mom? Um, it's weird to see such lauded actors also in this, like Eugene Levy and Jennifer Coolidge, who have had sort of a renaissance later in life, more recently with like Schitt's Creek and White Lotus, and of course Natasha Lyonne, who's barely in this, but of course now she's in Poker Face, and this year she's in His Three Daughters, and she's getting Oscar buzz. So it's yeah, the main cast is I mean, yeah, they've all done stuff aside from this, um, and their careers kind of petered off at various different points along the way. But this has a pretty decent cast for 1999, um, and I'm sure there are people who will break it down and they'll analyze it, and those are the people who didn't grow up with American Pie. They grew up adjacent to American Pie, or in and around American Pie, or it came a little bit too late for them or a little too early for them. Like I was talking to somebody who's about like 5 years younger than me, so American Pie wasn't their thing. And they were like, "Yeah, I didn't see that," and it's like, well, yeah, you would have been. It wouldn't have quite been your thing, you know. You probably would have popped with Mean Girls, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Well, yeah, yeah." She was like, yeah, Mean Girls, Twilight, like those kind of things. So yeah, okay, yeah, I get your vibe. I know your age range, what films you guys were watching in high school. But this was for me. I mean, this was the year 1999. We had Varsity Blues, She's All That, 10 Things I Hate About You, American Pie, The Wood. I'm trying to think of like all of the. I'm gonna forget films. Didn't Drop Dead Gorgeous come out this year? We had a ton of films aimed at teens, just like they were throwing them at us every 5 seconds. So this was a hit. It's got a really interesting story about being rated R and trying to get that R rating, and they had to literally they were told to just have Jim thrust less than the pie. And I rewatched this again. I'm like, why is he even on the that is the weirdest way to do that. Like, move the pie, man. Like, you're making your life already more difficult. What you're trying to do has already just like really never been done. Like you're doing, and then on top of it, you're hilariously trying to do it in like on top of the counter. Like what was the thought process? I mean, there's so many things in this film. It's probably a hot mess, but I can't separate it from the 16-year-old version of myself that was really excited to see this and to sneak in and be like, I'm not supposed to be seeing this, but this film is like aimed at me and it's got that soundtrack. But you're in too deep and you're trying to keep all the fun in mind. It's just like blaring songs like that. Um, yeah, I it still gets me. The nostalgia still gets me, and I can't I can't fully objectively look at this film. And I should be aboard by it. Uh, it- LGBT film critic. I'm supposed to be like, well, stuff like American Pie is bad. There's really no representation here, and the one thing that is represented is homophobic. So I mean, the one time they ever bring anything up, it's Stifler being homophobic. So that's not good. But the audio description track isn't even worthwhile. Like trying to find or track down, it's not a good track. So there's really nothing here. But it is the 25th anniversary of something that at one time I liked, and it's weird because now it's like I don't even know that I need uh, kids to look at me like, "Why did you like that?" I feel like I can already do it myself. And I ask myself that question, but at the same time, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. Is that Casey Affleck? I'm like, I forgot Casey Affleck was in this. So, uh, yeah, American Pie, a weird movie from that is, I guess, this is what people think my high school was like. It wasn't like my high school. I think this is what people wanted their high schools to be like. They're like, oh man, I really want to play lacrosse and go to parties on Lake Michigan. The second part would be cool, but I mean that's just regionally based on where you live on. That you have to move there, but yeah. Otherwise, I think the other takeaway is why is the school so white? Like, Why? Um, anyway, yeah, is it problematic? Yeah. Could it be made today? No, because you can't just gender flip it. Like, the movie still doesn't work. Like, the jokes would still be inappropriate. I mean, even if it was the girls, and the girls are webcamming some dude stripping in the room, like some, foreign exchange student, some hot foreign exchange student that's a dude, it's still gonna be problematic. I mean, there's still things about this film that just don't work nowadays. Uh, it doesn't really matter. Guy, girl, non-binary characters. You could make this film like an all LGBT cast. I still don't know that it would work. I mean, diverse LGBT cast, and if you keep the script virtually the same, it just doesn't work. So, it's because it's also not representative. It would feel like a time capsule film. Like, nobody's using cell phones, nobody's scrolling any social media, nobody's texting, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many things that aren't happening in 1999. But in some ways, that's refreshing because it's like that was my high school. I wasn't texting anybody, and I didn't have a Facebook, you know, I wasn't on social. So, I'm never gonna give you a grade, for American Pie that you're gonna accept, but, the best way I can say is it tracks with everything else that I've said whenever I've leaned in on nostalgia, and I've said this film hits me nostalgically, and I'm a very nostalgic person, if you follow my reviews. I gave Deep Blue Sea an A, so, uh, yeah, I'm very much, like, I remember this film from a certain time period. I loved watching this film for a while. Like, it was everything, and actually, I think 2 is my I I would rather watch 2. I think 2 is a better film when you take the whole thing of them needing to lose their virginity, like, off the table, you know, and they're just real characters in, like, a given situation. I think the film becomes more interesting because it challenges them as characters instead of giving them this task they have to complete. So, um but so if I took one of the American Pie films with me to the desert island, it would be 2. So it's not gonna get an A plus, but I also really objectively, I have no idea what this film you know, my first reaction to this would have been an A. You know, so if you're like, well, what would the first grade? Well, I was 16. I went to see American Pie. It was gonna be an A. Like, I walked in and saw a film. You know, I mean, like, they were this was the year of teen films for us. I mean, like, every film coming out of this, I would have given, uh, for the most part. Maybe a couple of them. I don't remember really loving Drop Dead Gorgeous that much, but, um, yeah, for the most part, a lot of those films, 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, Varsity Blues, I love watching all those films. I don't know, they're all from that year that I started to drive, that year that, I wasn't graduating that year, but I was close to graduating, you know? It was representative of maybe what future could look like for me without putting a whole lot of thought into it, and that was what Hollywood was marketing to me and selling to me and being like, "This is you, this is who you're supposed to be." I'm not that, I wanna be that. And do you? Do you wanna be? Well, this is what you have to do to be this. You know, everything from that time period. It's weird to watch it now, absolutely, but I think it's probably weird for anybody to watch films from these little blips of time periods. You know, anytime you watch a film where somebody's carrying like a gigantic cell phone, they're weird. It's a weird film. But yeah, American Pie. I don't know that I have anything fresh to offer to this conversation. I agree with everything that's been said recently. I don't think anybody's who said anything wrong. It is everything that people say it is. Problematic, but again, so are films like Porky's, which was made, you know, a full generation before this one. There was a film for you. So, American Pie didn't start anything. American Pie was just continuing the trend. So, um, yeah, and I'm sure there will be something else later on down the line. Yeah, we'll just keep doing this over and over. So, I'm giving American Pie an A because what the hell? You know, 16-year-old me is still in there somewhere and is like, give the film an A, damn it. I don't care. It makes me happy, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't. I, I You know, some films age out and you're like, "I can't watch this film anymore." American Pie, I watch it and it just takes me back to my high school years. Maybe it's the music, maybe it's the mix of everything. Even the film, it doesn't look anything like this is not the friend circle is so weird. Oz is like the jock and he's hanging out with 3 non-jocks. That never happens. You know, like, it's just like he has no jock friends. Like, at least one of the other characters statistically should be a jock, you know? None of them are. It's just Oz. Um, anyway, that's American Pie. Those are my thoughts. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.